Okay, so in the last video, we were just talking about my daughter having just visited a specialist Asperger school, which was the primary school, Farley College in Frome. For the first time, she spent a few hours there to see if it's the sort of place that she might like, and it was sort of a revelation to me just how comfortable she was following that visit. Okay, so moving on from there, these places are massively, massively expensive. And unless you're uber rich, you can't really afford to send your child there. It's not just a case of the local education authority saying, yeah, okay then. Now, where we are in Wales, there was at that time no provision. In fact, I believe that even today there's still no, pardon me, appropriate full-time boarding AS provision. Just doesn't exist. So basically what we did, we had to get her, at this point she still didn't have an educational statement. Now, putting aside okay, so we talked about my daughter's visit in the last video to an independent Asperger school and about how comfortable she felt there. Now, it's not a case of just sending your child there unless you're, you know, rich and able to afford the massive fees, and they are big fees. It's really not that simple. And today in Wales, certainly in the south of Wales, and I think it's probably the same for the whole of Wales, there's no provision for teenagers with Asperger's to go full-time to a college with a possibility of boarding that is purely for children with Asperger's or autistic spectrum disorders. It just doesn't exist. So at this time, my daughter isn't attending school. She's having 3 or 4 hours education at home a week, and she hasn't got an educational statement because, as we know, the idea of educational statements is up in the air and they probably won't exist very shortly. And having a statement means that schools and local educational authorities have to put their money where their mouth is, so they fight you all the way to actually, you know, allow your child to have a statement. So the first thing we needed to do was to get an educational statement. And again, you know, a great chap called Nigel Pugh, who's now an independent educational advocacy working from the Wiltshire area. I'm sure he won't mind me mentioning him. He basically saved our lives, and he took our case, and he worked alongside IPSEA, that's IPSEA, to basically help us get Jacqueline an educational statement, but also to get this specialist school named as our choice of educational provision for her. Now, in our area, there are certain schools available. There are what they call sort of add-on units or specialist units that add on to main schools. Now the nearest one to us is added onto a massive, massive school, much bigger than the one that she was struggling in a sensory way in the other school. And it was basically more or less a one classroom sort of unit where children popped in and out of for extra help, but they did access main curriculum in a lot of the lessons in the main school. So if you look at it, on the face of it, this was never going to be appropriate because she wasn't coping in mainstream school. She wasn't coping with the whole sort of infrastructure, the whole sort of school community. So what they were suggesting is by, you know, to put her in here, but what they were actually suggesting is to socially isolate her into basically one room. the next suggestion that they had was quite interesting. We have a local community farm here, which is an absolutely wonderful place. It's a great place. It's a great provision for the community. And they have some farm buildings out the back. Now, Jacqueline's passion is animals. She loves animals. More so, she more so did then. So what they decided in their infinite wisdom was that she could be schooled by a tutor in one of these buildings. Basically, it was along a dirt track at the back of the farm. This building has got bars on the window. There was no natural light, actually, saying that, no windows, bars on the doors. There was no hot or cold running water, and just one massive, huge fluorescent light hanging not that far above a table. And what they told us was that it could be made suitable as a schoolroom for her. Yeah, anyway, least said about that, the better. It was never going to happen. We would never, ever have let that happen. We did go around different units, we did go around different schools, but there was just nothing appropriate for her. There is a really good provision locally to us, which is a special school. It's a special needs school for special needs children, but they have lots of very severely disabled children, with lots of very severe learning difficulties, and they wanted Jacqueline to go here as well. But she would never, ever have had anything in common with 90% of these children, because she's intellectually, above average. And the whole system was just getting her in somewhere that was already here, that was cheap, basically, just put her somewhere so that she wouldn't be a burden on the system. And of course, every child matters. And, she has the right to an equal education, and if they can't give her an equal education, they have to go and find it for her, and that's all we wanted. So again, to cut a very long story short, we went to tribunal, and after a lot of deliberation, I think it was about 9 hours that day actually in tribunal. It was torturous. It was really very traumatic, and some time for them to make a decision, some weeks actually. But they actually found in our favour, and Jacqueline was given an educational statement, and she was also awarded a place at this independent school. Now, it wasn't all plain sailing. It really wasn't. These places are not, they're not the perfect institutions, and you still have to be on the ball, you have to be. But what I would say to you is that the people looking after the kids over there have so much more knowledge and so many more qualifications and so much more experience working with children like this, as well as the environment. This was out in the middle of the country with loads of room for her to run about, outside of class time. She was able to stay midweek in an all-girls dorm, and 2 of those girls are still her best friends today. So yes, whilst it had its problems and there was sort of quite a few frantic phone calls at times, she was safe, but more importantly, she was happy. And not only that, when she got to 16, when she got to the school leaving age and she wanted to go on after doing her GCSEs, which she achieved really good grades in her GCSEs, and she wanted to go on and do A-levels, she actually went on to Farley College in Swindon, which is a provision for older students, and she's been there now for 3 years, and they have brought her on so much, to the point where she is now preparing to go to university in September. She's been accepted and she's put in her firm choices, etc. Now, if you look back to her in year 9, where she didn't want even to live, and now she is getting together her bits and pieces to live independently amongst other students, there is no comparison whatsoever. between her and that other child. And I will say categorically that without the education that she had and without the provision, well, I would say that not only would she not have got anywhere near where she is now, but I wouldn't even like to imagine the state of her mental health. I honestly believe she would have been hospitalised by now, if not worse. So that's why, to all those people who've asked me, friends, etc., and people who ring me up and ask me questions about independent schooling, that's why we chose that route for our daughter. Is it right for your daughter or is it right for your son? I don't know. Only you can make that decision, but don't close the door before you've had a peek through. And also let them have choices as well, because, you know, I know really, really well some of the young men and women who live and learn alongside my daughter. And, you know, I've got to know them really well. And each and every one of them have had really difficult journeys, just like she has. And they are now amazingly balanced people. Each and every one of them has still got an autistic spectrum disorder, but they've been given tools to help them deal with some of those difficulties, and those tools would not have been given to them. I mean, many of them have been excluded so many times. They've been from school to school to school trying to fit in. You know, many of them, you know, had so little qualifications before they got to where they are now, and many of them now are preparing to go to university. I think 3 or 4 out of 5 living alongside Jacqueline are actually going to university in September, which is an amazing achievement. So that's all I'm going to say on the matter for now. If anybody wants some more information, please feel free to contact me. If anyone wants the if anybody wants the information of a really, really good educational advocate, contact me and I will give his details. I'll probably link to his details actually below. And if you want to make a comment, please do. And I will speak to you soon.